In this podcast, we'll take a look at the brain. The brain is a very complex organ that controls all conscious and unconscious thoughts in order to keep an organism alive. The brain is made up of millions of interconnected neurons, and these are nerve cells. And different regions of the brain are responsible for coordinating, which means organizing different functions. So the brain is very delicate and it's complex, and we don't really understand it properly yet because it is so complex. So there's lots of studies going on at the moment about brain function. But this means that if the brain is damaged, the treatment is very difficult because we don't understand it fully. So why is it hard to treat brain injuries? This is because the brain is delicate, it's not well understood, and it's complex. So which are the part of the brain? We've got the neurons, which cause brain activity. So if you imagine inside your brain, you've got a whole network of neurons which are firing off electrical impulses. So if you were to see this in an image, it would look like, I don't know, a very starry sky, or how you might imagine lots of electricity going, if you were to visualize what the activity of the nerves were. So the human brain is made up of three main parts, which are called the cerebrum, the hypothalamus, and the cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex is responsible for conscious thought. So this is things like memory, language, and intelligence. The cerebellum is responsible for muscle coordination, and this is very important for movement, posture, balance, and speed, and also speech. The medulla is the part of the brain which is responsible for unconscious activities. So this would be things like breathing and heartbeat that you don't even have to think about, and you could do whilst you were asleep. So those parts of the brains which we just learned about, which are really important that you know, are the cerebellum, the cerebral cortex, and the medulla. So, the scientists that study the brain are called neuroscientists, and they've been working for many years to try and understand how the brain works. So one way that they can study the brain is by looking at patients who have brain damage. And so this means that part of their brain isn't functioning. So neuroscientists have been able to link particular regions of the brain to particular functions. For example, if one part of your brain isn't working and that person is unable to walk or is unable to do a certain thing, then we can start to think that that part of the brain is linked to that particular action. Another method is electrical stimulation. And this has allowed us to treat certain disorders of the brain. This is because the nervous system communicates using electrical impulses, and electrical stimulation is used to help conditions such as Parkinson's disease, which causes tremors. So instead of the neurons firing off this electrical activity, we could do this artificially through electrical stimulation. Another method to research the brain is MRI scanners. And MRI stands for magnetic resonance imaging. These scanners have allowed us to learn which areas of the brain are active during different activities, such as moving, speaking, and listening. So an MRI scan will bring up an image, and that image, it could be coloured in a certain way, and we'll be able to see which parts of the brain are working when a person is doing a certain activity. So let's have a look at those techniques again. So we've got electrical stimulation, which allows us to treat certain disorders of the brain. We've got brain damage, and so by studying patients with brain damage, we can map regions of the brain to a particular function. And MRI scanners allow us to learn which areas of the brain are active during different activities. So how can neuroscience help us to treat people with Parkinson's disease? So this is a disease which affects the brain and causes tremors in people's hands. So since their nervous system communicates using electrical impulses, electrical stimulation can be used to help treat Parkinson's disease. Within the brain, the cerebellum is responsible for muscle coordination. The cerebral cortex is responsible for conscious thought, and the medulla is responsible for unconscious activities. So, can you remember what the techniques used in neuroscience are? Just have a little think about that. So number 1, we've got MRI scanners. 2, we've got electrical stimulation. And 3, we've got studying brain diseases or brain damage as well. Different areas of the brain are responsible for coordinating different activities or functions.